Now we're going to do exercise 2-3 from the book. Create a simple program. In this exercise, what they're asking us to do is copy an existing program and make some modifications to it, which is probably what you're going to see out there in the real business world. You're not going to want to reinvent the wheel. If you have a existing piece of code that does 75% of what's needed to be done on the new piece of code, what you're going to do is you're going to grab the existing code, you're going to make whatever modifications you had to do there based on maybe some formulas that were sent over from accounting or whatever. So now we're going to look at the existing program they want us to open and modify. They want us to modify the miles per gallon program and change it into a new program that given the length and width of rectangular area, that it calculates the area and perimeter. So I guess the first step is to really understand the program you're going to modify. So we're going to do a quick look over of this to really see what they did with the existing program, and then we're going to determine where we have to make our modifications. So we look at the top. I see the shebang line. We can just ignore this. That's discussed in this book, and then also in previous videos in detail. So we're going to ignore it for now and just leave it in there. And we can see at the beginning of it, they're basically doing a print statement and naming the program. Eventually, we're gonna be changing that to obviously, if we're gonna be calculating the area and the perimeter. It's not the miles per gallon program anymore. So we're gonna change that here in a little bit. Let's look at the input. We can see that they're pulling in miles driven and gallons, and we're gonna do some slight modification on that. Because we're gonna want to change it over to grabbing the length and the width. I also see right here that if you look at the forward or backward /T is being used, that they're using these escape characters to tab over to kind of do some spacement in the code, and that just is some you can add spacing to make things look a little better. Like if you have one big input line with a lot of verbiage in there, and then one not so big input line. If you want the inputs to line up on your program, on the smaller line, you're going to have to tab, put a couple tabs in, maybe 3 tabs or even 4 tabs. Now if we go down here, we could see that this part of the program, they're actually doing their calculations. So when we get to this part of the program, we're going to have to add all new calculations in. And at the very end, looks like they're under format and display the result. They're printing out a line. They're concatenating. They have some verbiage, and they're concatenating the miles per gallon to that line. There's a couple ways you could do that. Since they use the concatenation, they had to do a conversion here with this function to change miles per gallon to a string. I'll show you another way, and that we can get some that looks really similar, but doesn't involve us having to use this function here. And my guess is why they were probably trying to use that function is they wanted to throw these tabs in it and make it all in one. Maybe it was a formatting kind of aesthetics looking thing, but we're going to check out another way to do that. So if I read through the text, it wants us to save it as a new name. So we're going to do the save as. And obviously we don't want to call it miles per gallon anymore, because it's really not that anymore. And the book has us calling it rectangle. I think we could stick with that. That sounds good. Yeah, you could call it whatever you want, but all something descriptive is, at least in my opinion, always the best. Okay. So now you notice up at the top that it now says rectangle, because that's the program we're working on, and we saved a new version. And this also lets us keep the miles per gallon program pristine. Okay, so we can ignore the shebang statement. We're just going to let that stay up there. The first place we're going to want to change is this miles per gallon program. We can leave program in there, but we were going to want to change it to something like the area and perimeter program. And that definitely describes it, what we're going to be doing here. Okay, so we look over here and we see miles driven. I mean, we could actually leave miles driven and gallons used and change the just the words here, and so we and use them like they really were, the length and the width, but we don't want to do that. And the reason why is because if too many times when you're modifying a piece of code, you use maybe the original name of something that might be totally different, non-descriptive of what it's the actual variable is already being used is being used for, it's going to cause confusion not only to you but people in the future. And depending on where you are, you might even have before a piece of your Python code is used for a data science process, a graph or something. You might have it reviewed by people, and they're going to look at that and say, man, you should really change the name, because it's going to cause confusion. So just for yourself and for other people, you definitely want to try to use descriptive names. So we're going to change it to length, and we could go over here, and the one below we're going to change that to width. Okay, now even though we changed the actual name, we still have some verbiage here that don't want. So miles driven, we're going to take that out, and we're going to say enter the length, which is the one we're going to grab first. And man, I'm thinking we probably don't need all these tabs, so I'm going to get rid of one of the tabs. I think when we change the actual length of the character strings we're going to use in this enter input command, we're going to not need double there, just because the size would be a little smaller on the one and bigger on the other. So we're going to also change the width here. And we're going to go enter width. Okay. Now I'm looking at it. Man, we might need another tab on the bottom of this one. So it'd be almost like we reversed it. We're going to put it in there. And if it's too much or doesn't look right, we could always come back in the program and remove or add any of these until we get things that basically look like they're going to line up. Okay. Next step is the calculation part, and we have you can see we have these mile per gallon calculations, but we don't need those anymore. We need to do area, and we know the formula for area is area equals, well, at least when talking about a rectangle, length times width. Oop. There we go. So we're calculating, we have the area down there. And the next one we need to calculate is the perimeter. And the formula for the perimeter is, we know it's 2 times the length plus two times the width. And we're gonna add in little extra to this, because we're working with floats, and depending on what people enter as their floats, we could get numbers with 10 decimal points if they add it. I want to do some quick rounding, so we're gonna go area equals round. We're going to do area to only 2 decimal points. So what this is basically saying, if we're given the we have a float that's has like say 10.9972134, that we're going to do some rounding to just only display 2 digits after the decimal point. And we're going to want to do that for the perimeter too. Here, I'm just going to grab that, copy it down, and equals, let's do a round. Hey, this comes in really handy for a lot of programs, especially when there's no division in this, but especially when there's division involved, you come up with crazy digits with working with float after the decimal point, and a lot of times people don't want to see them. Sometimes they do. In our case, we don't want to see them, so we're going to remove that. And last but not least, we have the actual display of our data. And we could stick with the first print, which is just basically making a blank line. giving it a little space, and it says miles per gallon. We are no longer doing miles per gallon, so let's get rid of that. And we're going to type in area, and we're going to say area equals, and I think we could maybe try to get away without using the string function. We can't concatenate it, but we can put a comma in there to tell the print statement that, hey, we have lots of things to print, more things to print. So it's gonna, the print statement's gonna print a string, and then we're gonna ask it to print a number also. Behind the scenes, it's gonna automatically convert that number to string. We just couldn't do any concatenation or use the concatenation operator, which is the plus symbol. Okay, so now we're printing area. We want to do the same thing for perimeter. I'm just going to copy this one down. And we're going to do some more copying. Put that in here. So we have perimeter equals, and we're going to pass it the perimeter. And next we have a line, and it says bye. We're going to say goodbye. So I would say goodbye. Make a little modification, unnecessary, but you may want to just add your own style into whatever you do. Now looking at it again, I see that everything's looking good. These comments are a little off now, and we probably want to change that. And so it says calculate miles per gallon. We're just going to get rid of that. We don't want that. We want to put calculate area and perimeter. And I'm going to leave this one here, format and display results, because we're still doing that. That still holds true with our current program. Okay, looking at it, and I can see we spell perimeter wrong, and that's not gonna matter. And I even copied it down incorrect. So I'm gonna leave that. I'm not gonna change it, except where we actually display to whoever's going to be the user, because I want to give just kind of a example of the fact that if you define your own variable, you could call it whatever. In real life, I would recommend changing it, just for the fact that someone later is going to go and go, oh, this person, and you might even have your name in the comments somewhere, has wrote a Python script, and they have misspellings throughout. So I mean, it is fairly good idea to go back and try to correct misspellings in general. But I'm going to just leave that there, at least for this run of the program, to kind of show you that if you define it, the spelling really doesn't matter. It just can't be a reserved word or anything. But when you're trying to use functions, from actual Python, like float or input or round, you have to spell it right. And IDLE does identify when you do spell things correctly. It sees that, oh, this is a reserved word, round. It knows what it is. Let's run this now and see if we have errors or no errors. It's going to run. It's going to make me save again. Enter the length. Well, length 10 and width of 5. And there we have our area and our perimeter. So everything worked out fine. And this assignment is complete. The only thing that, if this was something that you were going to use in the workplace, I would run back, and if you notice a misspelling, run back and fix your particular misspellings. It's always just a good thing to do.